All right, so the Rawhide belt turned into Midnight Braid. It's a belt, charm slot 1, 24% increased life recovered from Flask, plus 44 to max mana, plus 9% to all elemental resistances, plus 50% of damage taken recouped as mana. That's probably the main thing, the 50% damage retaken, recouped as mana. All right, so I'm going to have AI give a Theorycraft build. Again, just a Theorycraft build, just an idea. You can probably do many, many different things with this. So let's start that up right now.
Today we're going to be taking a look at Path of Exile 2.
Okay.
And there's this build that I've been theory crafting
Right.
that I really wanted to kind of pick your brain about a little bit.
Yeah.
It's a sorcerer's build.
Okay.
And it's centered around this unique item called the Midnight Braid.
Interesting.
And the concept is so wild. I'm dying to see if it can actually work.
Oh, okay.
So the idea is turning damage taken into mana
Okay.
as a resource for spells.
Interesting concept. Yeah.
So the Midnight Braid itself, it says 50% of damage taken recouped as mana.
So you're almost wanting to take damage to fuel your spells?
Right.
Interesting.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
So you can't just be like stand there and get hit.
Right. You're not just going to be a punching bag.
Right.
You have to find ways to mitigate the damage.
Okay.
But also make sure you're taking enough to keep that mana flowing.
Okay, so this balance.
It's a delicate balance.
Yeah.
For sure.
So why the sorceress for this? What makes her the best choice for this type of build?
Well, we're looking at the Ascendant
Okay.
and specializing into the Stormweaver.
Okay.
And that's because she actually has an ability to recoup elemental damage as energy shield. So you're mitigating the damage in two ways. You're also getting mana back.
Oh, wow.
So it's like a double whammy.
So we're not just mitigating, we're like converting damage into resource.
Turning that damage into a resource.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah, it's a really cool synergy.
Okay, so what skills are we looking at here?
Well, one that really stands out is Arctic Armor.
Okay.
Now, this is a persistent cold spell
Right.
that converts a portion of physical damage taken into cold damage.
Okay, so we're already mitigating some damage there.
Exactly, and it also feeds into the Midnight Braid's mana recoup.
Right.
Because now you're taking cold damage.
And cold damage is also something that the Ascendant can benefit from.
Exactly. Depending on how you allocate your passive skill points,
Right.
you can actually recoup some of that cold damage as energy shield as well.
So we're turning those big hits into mana,
That's right.
which we can then use for spells.
Exactly.
So what are we spending all this mana on? What spells are we thinking about?
Well, Sigil of Power is going to be a big one.
Okay.
This spell gives you a pretty significant damage boost while you're standing in its area of effect.
All right.
Since we're constantly recouping mana, we can keep that sigil up almost all the time.
I see. So the more damage we take, the more mana we get,
Yeah,
the more damage we can dish out.
exactly. It's a beautiful cycle of pain and power.
I like it.
Yeah.
So for actual like damage spells, what are we thinking?
Orb of Storms is going to be our bread and butter here.
Okay.
It's got consistent damage output
Okay.
and a chance to shock enemies,
Okay.
which of course makes them take more damage.
Oh, so more mana.
Exactly. It all feeds back into the loop.
I love this.
Yeah.
Okay, but before we go too crazy here,
Yeah.
we got to talk about how we're going to stay alive. Right?
Of course. Survivability is key.
What are we thinking?
Well, something like Sorcery Ward could be really effective.
Okay.
It's going to directly mitigate elemental damage,
Okay.
which synergizes perfectly with both the Stormweaver and the Midnight Braid.
So we're not just tanky. We're also like built to take this damage.
That's right. We're built to thrive in the midst of chaos.
I like it. Okay, so we got skills. What about the passive tree?
Well, Energy Shield is going to be paramount.
Okay.
You want a big pool of ES to act as a buffer.
Okay.
And of course, to maximize that Energy Shield recoup from Stormweaver.
Right. The bigger the shield, the more we get back.
Exactly.
What else are we looking at?
We'll definitely want to focus on elemental damage.
Okay.
Especially lightning and cold.
Right, for Orb of Storms and Arctic Armor.
Exactly. Mana regeneration and life and mana leech are also important to keep us going in those longer fights.
Right, so we're not just a glass cannon.
No, we're a sustainable force of destruction.
I like it. Okay, so passive tree, we kind of get a picture of that now.
Yeah.
What about gear? What kind of rare items should we be looking out for?
For rares, you'll want to prioritize energy shield, elemental resistances,
Okay.
mana, and life.
So pretty much anything that helps us stay alive longer?
Exactly. Anything that bolsters our defenses and keeps that mana flowing.
This is sounding really intricate.
It is. It's a complex build,
Yeah.
but that's part of the fun.
Right. It's not just button mashing.
No. This is about careful resource management,
Okay.
knowing when to engage, when to retreat.
Adapting.
Exactly. Adapting to the
I
situation.
like we're creating a character that thrives in chaos.
Absolutely. Turning adversity into an advantage.
Before we move on to gameplay,
Yeah.
I just want to kind of recap a little bit of what we've talked about.
Okay.
So we're building a sorceress
Right.
that embraces damage taken as a resource,
Yeah.
using the Midnight Braid to recoup mana,
Uh-huh.
and the Stormweaver Ascendancy to give us more defenses with Energy Shield.
That's right.
So, key skills, Arctic Armor,
Yes.
Sigil of Power,
Yeah.
Orb of Storms,
Uh-huh.
and then something like Sorcery Ward to help us mitigate.
Exactly.
Passive tree is going to be focused on Energy Shield,
Yep.
Elemental Damage,
Yep.
Mana, and Lay Sustain. Flask Recovery.
It's a beautiful tapestry of pain and power.
This is sounding more and more exciting the more we talk about it.
It is a really fascinating build.
So now let's dive a little deeper into the gameplay
All right, let's do it.
and figure out how to really master this dance of pain and power.
I like that dance of pain and power. I like it. So you mentioned the dance of pain and power.
Yeah.
Flasks are going to be crucial to that dance.
Yes.
Your lifeline, your emergency reserves,
Well, yeah.
when things get dicey.
So we're prioritizing life recovery and defensive buffs, right?
Absolutely.
Is there a reason for that?
Synergy. Remember the increased life recovery from Flasks we talked about with the Midnight Braid?
Right.
The faster you recover, the more damage you can take, which means more mana.
Oh, so we're not just trying to stay alive. We're actually using the flasks to
Yeah.
fuel our offense.
You're using them strategically
Okay.
to enhance your damage output.
That's an interesting way to look at flasks.
It's all about that cycle.
Yeah. Yeah.
Damage taken, life recovered, more damage, more mana.
I like it. So what about mana in general?
Yeah, good point.
We're casting a lot of spells.
You are.
Some of them are probably going to be pretty expensive.
Yeah, mana management is key here.
Okay.
The Midnight Braid helps a lot,
Right.
but it's not infinite.
Okay.
You got to be smart about it.
So we can't just be spamming our biggest spells all the time.
Right, you need to find that balance
Gotcha.
between those big hitters and more efficient spells.
So sometimes it's better to hold back.
Yeah, sometimes it's better to play it safe.
Yeah. Okay. So we talked about flasks. We talked about mana.
Yeah?
How does this build handle different enemy types?
That's a great question.
Do we need to adjust?
Absolutely. Adaptability is key in Path of Exile too,
Okay.
especially with this build.
So like, give me an example.
Sure. Let's say you're facing a pack of melee enemies.
All physical damage.
Yep.
Okay.
You'll want to make sure your Arctic armor is up,
Okay.
maybe even adjust your passive tree or gear.
To mitigate more physical damage.
Exactly.
Okay, what if they're resistant to like lightning or cold?
Then you got to get creative.
Okay.
Maybe change your Orb of Storms support gems.
To penetrate resistances.
Yeah, or even switch to a different element altogether.
So this build really makes you think on your feet.
It does. You need to be reactive.
Yeah.
Always analyzing the situation.
I like that, this build really does push boundaries.
It does.
Taking damage is usually a bad thing.
Right. It's usually something you want to avoid. But here we are.
But we're flipping the script. We're turning it into a strength.
Exactly.
This is pretty cool.
It's a testament to the game's design.
Yeah.
The freedom it gives you.
So you can really make these unique builds.
You can create something truly special.
I like it. So we've talked about the concept,
Yeah.
mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
What about the actual experience?
Playing this build is exhilarating,
Okay.
but it's not easy.
What do you mean?
It's demanding.
Okay.
You're constantly balancing on a knife's edge.
Between offense and defense,
Exactly.
managing your mana,
Yeah.
reacting to everything.
It's a high wire act.
Sounds intense.
It is, but the rewards are worth it.
So it's not for the casual player.
Not really, no.
You've really got to be invested in this.
You need to understand the mechanics.
Okay.
Be willing to put in the work.
But if you do,
If you do, you'll be rewarded.
with this incredibly powerful and unique character,
You'll be conducting a symphony of pain and power.
that's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
We've covered a lot.
We have.
But before we wrap up, I want to touch on the appeal of this build.
Beyond the mechanics,
Yeah.
it's more than just numbers.
Okay.
It's about embodying a certain fantasy.
What do you mean?
The Wounded Mage.
Okay.
drawing strength from adversity.
Oh, I like
turning pain into power.
That's a really cool concept.
It's a classic trope.
Yeah.
But it's so effective.
So it's not just a build, it's like a whole...
It's a whole experience.
Yeah.
It's about embracing your vulnerabilities.
And using them against your enemy.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
It really is. It's like a testament to Path of Exile 2's design philosophy.
Yeah.
You know, giving players the tools to create these crazy builds.
So as we wrap up,
Yeah.
What are some like final takeaways?
If you are drawn to that challenge
Okay.
of turning, adversity into an advantage.
Yeah.
If you enjoy that kind of like intricate dance of risk and reward,
Okay.
then this build is definitely for you.
Right.
It requires a lot of knowledge, of the game's systems, willingness to experiment, to adapt.
Okay.
But the payoff is huge.
Okay.
Imagine standing there in the middle of a chaotic battlefield, surrounded by enemies.
Okay.
Their attacks feeling your power.
Oh, I like that.
Their pain is your victory.
Very poetic.
You're turning that weakness into a strength.
I like it.
It's a classic fantasy trope.
It is.
But it's so effective in this context.
The wounded mage.
The wounded mage, exactly.
Drawing strength from the forces that try to destroy them.
And that's what makes this build so compelling. It's not just a build, it's an embodiment of that fantasy.
I like that.
So this has been a really cool exploration.
Yes.
I mean, we've gone beyond just the mechanics. We've delved into the philosophy.
It's the why.
Exactly, the why of the build.
It's not just the how, it's the why.
And remember, this is just one example of the endless possibilities in the Path of Exile 2.
Yeah. So to all of our listeners out there, what other crazy builds have you come up with?
What hidden gems are waiting to be discovered?
Use your imagination.
Exactly. Push the boundary.
Break the game.
Maybe not break the game, but,
Bend it.
Bend it, yeah.
Bend the rules a little bit.
Exactly.
Well, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure, as always.
Until next time, may your loot be legendary and your victories hard-won.
And may your pain be your power.
Happy gaming, everyone.